In the heart of Mexico, deep within the mountains of Sinaloa, an empire was born. An empire built on cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and blood. For decades, the Sinaloa Cartel has been one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. Led by infamous kingpins like Joaquin El Chapo Guzmán, it grew into a multi-billion-dollar empire, controlling drug routes across the Americas and beyond. But their most dangerous battleground was not Mexico. It was the United States of America. This is the story of how the Sinaloa Cartel waged war inside America's borders and how the FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security fought to stop them. This is Narcos of the North, the Sinaloa Cartel's drug war in America. The Sinaloa Cartel began in the 1980s as small-time traffickers in Mexico's rugged mountains. But under the leadership of El Chapo, it grew into the most powerful cartel in history. Unlike rivals, Sinaloa didn't just use brute force. They used alliances, bribery, and cunning strategies. Their traffickers dug tunnels under the U.S. border, bribed airport officials, and even used submarines to move drugs. By the early 1990s, cocaine and heroin shipments were flooding into California, Arizona, and Texas. American cities from Los Angeles to Chicago were drowning in narcotics. The Sinaloa Cartel wasn't just moving drugs. They were building an empire inside the U.S. Violence was their language. In Mexico, rivals were executed in broad daylight. Heads were left in coolers outside police stations. But soon, violence spilled across the border. In El Paso, Phoenix, and Houston, American street gangs tied to Sinaloa carried out shootings, kidnappings, and executions. The FBI discovered that Sinaloa had recruited local gangs, the Bloods, the Crips, MS-13 as foot soldiers in America. These gangs distributed cocaine, heroin, and meth, while funneling millions in profits back to Mexico. America's cities had become an extension of the Sinaloa battlefield. By the 2000s, the FBI and DEA realized they weren't just chasing drug dealers. They were fighting a foreign army operating on U.S. soil. The government created joint task forces groups of FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, and ATF agents dedicated to dismantling cartel networks. Wiretaps, undercover buys, and surveillance began mapping out the cartel's American operations. But the cartel struck back, agents were ambushed, informants vanished. Court witnesses were silenced. The deeper the FBI went, the more dangerous it became. One of the FBI's most shocking discoveries came in San Diego in 2006. Beneath an ordinary warehouse, agents uncovered a 2,400-foot tunnel running from Mexico into California. The tunnel was lined with lights, rails, and ventilation systems, an engineering marvel. Through these tunnels, tons of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana had been smuggled into America. But tunnels were just one method. The Sinaloa Cartel also used semi-trucks with hidden compartments, private planes, fishing boats, and submarines. Even U.S. border agents on their payroll. The war was no longer about stopping drugs, it was about stopping corruption from rotting America from within. At the center of it all was Joaquin El Chapo Guzmán. Though based in Mexico, El Chapo's shadow loomed large in the U.S. He ordered shipments, directed violence, and controlled billions in American drug sales. The FBI called him the most dangerous drug trafficker of all time. In Chicago alone, the Sinaloa Cartel supplied 80% of heroin by 2010. Entire neighborhoods were addicted. Overdose deaths skyrocketed. The FBI declared El Chapo public enemy number one, a title not given since Al Capone. Every war has traitors, and the Sinaloa Cartel's greatest weapon wasn't just violence, it was corruption. Bribed border agents waved trucks through. Corrupt U.S. police officers leaked raid plans. Politicians received cartel money for campaign funds. Even inside the FBI, suspicion grew. Could the cartel have infiltrated America's own defenders? For the Bureau, trust became as dangerous as the bullets. In 2011, the FBI launched Operation Black Ice, targeting the Sinaloa Cartel's distribution in Arizona and Chicago. Undercover agents posed as truckers, bankers, even corrupt cops. Wiretaps intercepted calls in Spanish, code words for shipments, and death threats for snitches. In one warehouse raid, the FBI seized $22 million in cash, stacked floor to ceiling. Another raid uncovered 10 tons of cocaine hidden in frozen vegetable trucks. But the more they seized, the more shipments came. The Sinaloa Cartel was a hydra. Cut off one head, two more grew. As the FBI closed in, the cartel lashed out. In Phoenix, A cartel hit squad opened fire on an FBI informant in broad daylight. In Chicago, drive-by shootings linked to Sinaloa's gang allies left children dead. In Dallas, a federal judge was assassinated outside his home. The war was no longer secret. It was on America's streets. In 2016, after years of cat and mouse, El Chapo was finally captured in Mexico. The FBI and DEA worked with Mexican Marines to storm his hideout. Gunfire erupted. El Chapo fled through tunnels, but was caught and extradited to the U.S. In 2019, in a Brooklyn courtroom, El Chapo was sentenced to life without parole. For the FBI, it was a historic victory, the most powerful cartel boss in the world caged. But the war was far from over. Today, the Sinaloa Cartel still operates. Though El Chapo sits in prison, his sons the Chapitos continue his empire. Drugs still flow, guns still fire, blood still spills. The FBI calls it a never-ending war, a war not just on the border, but in every American city touched by addiction, violence, and corruption. And as long as there is demand, the serpent of Sinaloa will never die.